Alright guys, so for this video I'm going to show you how to hang a picture, or in this case, technically could be a charcuterie board, but it was my guest list for my wedding. So I have everybody signed it, and I want to hang it up in my house. But it's basically the same thing as hanging a picture frame, so I figured I would make a video on it. As always, you might want to watch the whole video first, because sometimes I leave out some crucial information and I don't add it in until later. So don't follow it, word for word or whatever until you watch the whole video to make sure you don't miss anything. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is figure out where you want to hang it. I have chosen to hang it right here. We agreed that this height was a good height, so make sure that one, it's centered on whatever you want to hang it, and make sure it's the right height. What I've done is I figured out how far down with pressure up, and I'll talk about this wire setup that I have in a second, but with pressure up on this, because the full weight is going to be hanging, and you can notice that the wire is no longer straight across. I measured from the top down, so I know that's the final resting point. You don't want to measure from where the wire rests, because then when you hang this on the wall, it's obviously going to drop a little bit. So you want to make sure the wire is where it's going to be. So I measured down from the top, it's about 3 inches. I've since come on over here and I've marked where the top of the board is. I also marked where the center is, and I measured down my 3 inches. Now what I'm going to do is get my level. I'm going to make sure my level is right on my center point. I'm going to slide it over so it hits my ruler. I'm going to move the level so that it's nice and straight and plumb, so I know exactly that when I draw this line, it's going to come down nice and square. And I'm basically just going to draw a light line so I know it's exactly vertical, and I say a light line on purpose so you can easily erase it. Don't really bear down hard, because then it's going to be in the paint. It's going to be hard to get rid of. I know now that the top of my wire is going to be right here. Alright, so before I go any further, I talked about this wire. Now if you're hanging a picture frame that you bought from a store, it's already going to have something that you can hang it on a screw or a nail that's already attached to the back. But if you have something like this that you custom made, or if you're just hanging something that doesn't have any hanging hardware in the back, you can do what I did, which is basically you put 2 screws in on either side, and you get this picture wire. You can buy it from any hardware store. I got it from Lowe's. And they make different sizes. I bought this. This is a relatively small size. It'll still hold 30 pounds. So this board is absolutely not 30 pounds, not even close, but it's nice to go a little bit overboard so you have some security. So all I did was I really made sure that I made these screws straight across level, so when I hang this, the board is not crooked in any way. And then all you do is take the wire, wrap it around the screw, and then wrap the wire around itself coming in from both sides. That will ensure that the wire will not unravel on itself, and it'll stay nice and tight. Okay, so I also talked about buying, the 30-pound wire, and it's a little bit overkill. I'm going to go even more overkill, and I'm going to put 2 screws in as well into the wall. So that means it's going to be hanging by 2 screws versus just 1 screw. Most pictures are super, super light. This wood just a little bit heavier than your average picture frame, so I just want to make sure it's not going to fall. But I wouldn't really go this far for a regular picture frame. It's just, that's a little overkill. I'm going to be using these drywall anchors just in case I don't actually find a stud. So I'll talk about how I install these as well. These are rated for, right here, 35 pounds each. So again, I could just put it on 1 and it would be fine, but I like the security of 2. You'll know it'll never fall off the wall. So for the screws that are going to go into the wall, I made the decision that I wanted them 3 inches apart. So back to my wall over here, what I did was we had already drawn this line, which is perfectly vertical because we used a level, down to my 3-inch mark, which was right here. I put the level back up there on the 3-inch mark, and I made a nice perfectly level line across. That was a little bit too long. From my center, I measured out 1.5 inches to the right, 1.5 inches to the left, and now I have 2 marks that are 3 inches apart. Okay, so now I'm going to drill the holes. When you go to drill the hole to put these plastic anchors in, it calls for a 1/4 inch drill bit. So I got my 1/4 inch drill bit all set up. I'm gonna go ahead and drill the holes, and what I like to do is throw a dustpan right underneath, right up against the wall, and that kind of collects all the dust so it's not falling on the floor. All right, so there are my holes, 1/4-inch holes drilled exactly where I marked them out. Here's my little anchor. So I'm gonna start by pushing the anchor into the wall. You can usually push it in a little bit by hand. It's not gonna go all the way in by hand, so you can use your hammer. Now when you hammer this, don't go crazy. It's just a little bit of pressure, a little bit of hammering. I'm obviously not putting a lot of pressure on there because you don't wanna ruin the drywall. You don't wanna put a big hole in the drywall. That would be unfortunate. So get the second one in, get it in by hand a little bit. Hammer it the rest of the way. Now I'm ready for screws, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Go ahead, make sure your screw goes right in the center. And I'm gonna leave it sitting out just a little bit so I know it can catch the wire. Put the other screw in. So you can kind of even them out a little bit, but that looks pretty good right there. If you're wondering what that plastic anchor is doing, it shows you exactly what it's doing right here on the box. So that's how it's basically anchoring itself to the brittle and weak drywall. So, okay, so put the screws in. I erased all the pencil marks, even though you're not really going to see them, but you know, might as well erase them. And you're ready to hang it up. It can be a little tricky because I have 2 screws on here, so I want to make sure I'm catching it. Obviously you can't see anything, so I'm just going to slide it down the wall. So it has caught, but I'm going to take a peek back here, make sure I got both screws on the wire, which I did, and I'm going to let it hang. I'm going to step back. It looks a little unlevel, so I'm going to unweight it just a little bit, and I'm going to slide the wire so it rests on the nail. Now, if it was one single nail, you do the same thing. You just lift up and move it over and let the picture hang, and it's going to either hang unlevel or not. And you can use the level to really square it off. Or one of the biggest tricks on hanging pictures or paintings or anything is to not use a level at all, is to actually stand back in what looks correct to your eye. Because sometimes it can be level, but if things on the wall or the house isn't level, then your perfectly level picture is actually going to look funky. So sometimes you want to play with it and just step back, and if it looks good to your eye, but it's not level, then who cares, as long as it looks good, right? So you can use that technique to hang pretty much anything. Like I said, I went overboard with the 2 screws. You really don't need 2 screws, but I like to make sure that if there was ever an earthquake, it's not coming off the wall. All right, hope you learned something. Thanks.